Vietnam revoked my friend's residence permit. Today I want to fill you in on a very saddening story that happened recently and why it is so important that you convert to permanent residency as quickly as possible. Let's start out talking about this story which just unfolded recently. A friend of mine is an American. He has residency in 2 Southeast Asian countries, Vietnam and the Philippines. Not too long ago, him and me, we had this conversation about incorporating a business in Vietnam, making ourselves employees of the business. I gave this some serious thought, but came to the decision that it was not the right time for me to go back to Asia. On the other hand, he went ahead, incorporated his business, and filed the application for his work permit and residence permit. You need to understand that getting residency abroad is not as easy as a walk in the park. Very typically, it is a process that takes anywhere from 2 to 8 months. 8 months is probably on the long end of things, but it typically takes a couple months to get residency, assuming that you have all documents that you require for a successful application. And then obviously there is a waiting period for the authorities to approve your request. At the time he signed up with the lawyer he worked with, he was informed that he could renew his residence permit indefinitely. Since he incorporated a company, he asked very specific questions prior to moving ahead with the lawyer's services to confirm his ability to renew his residence permit. He clearly highlighted that he had no intention of running a business in Vietnam. For him, it was just going to be a stepping stone to staying in Vietnam for a longer period of time than he could on a tourist visa. The lawyer confirmed that he could remain in Vietnam on this visa for as long as he wanted. Guys, there's really no person on this planet that can guarantee you that this residence permit that you have right now, especially if it's temporary, will be good forever, that you can renew it indefinitely. And the problem with Vietnam's residency system is that getting permanent residency is very difficult to impossible for most people. Even people who I know who married Vietnamese citizens, they are still on temporary residency today, but they've been married for well over 10 years. They cannot get permanent residency in Vietnam. They don't issue it. You can't get it, not even if you're married. In my friend's case, the 3 years was the best case scenario, and he, in his mind, he had the expectation that he was going to be able to renew this visa indefinitely without actually running the business in Vietnam. So the business was just the point of entry, but he really had no intention. And I know him, and we had this discussion before he signed up. He definitely asked the lawyer these questions, and the lawyer confirmed. And that's why you can never be 100% certain, no matter who you deal with, whether it's a lawyer, whether it's any other company, that the information you get today will be valid 5 years later. There's no guarantee in life. My friend, he followed all the requirements. He implemented the legal code to a T. He did his accounting. He paid some taxes actually, and he was also audited. The government audited him, and they decided not to renew his residence permit. Maybe they are cracking down on people who own businesses in Vietnam and have a work permit through the business but don't actually run the business. And don't get me wrong, I'm not in support, I'm not in favor of incorporating a business just to get the work permit, because again, you never know when the government decides to take a look at your figures, at your financials, and decides that, hey, what you're doing is not sufficient, it's insufficient, we cancel your residence permit, we revoke your privileges. And that's exactly what happened in my friend's case. And that's why we at Nomad Elite, we get so many requests all the time from people who want to incorporate a business in Paraguay to get permanent residency, and then when I ask him about the business category and the path to profitability, they typically tell me, I don't want this business to be profitable, I just want to get permanent residency. And then I tell them, don't do it, because there are certain milestones you have to reach to get residency and maintain residence in a country. You really want to ensure that you have applied and obtained the right residence permit, where you personally know with certainty that this is a path to permanent residency and that you can meet the requirements year after year. You don't want to start a business where you can't meet the requirements. And if there are turnover requirements, there are accounting requirements for sure, there are tax requirements, there are compliance requirements. If, let's say in a case like Paraguay, you decide to do the Maquila company, the 1% corporate tax company, they will look very closely into the company structure, your volume, your transactions. They're gonna talk to customs becomes, I mean, you really have to comply to the legal code. This is not for someone who does not want this kind of company, because there are requirements, there is compliance, so please don't do this unless you really have a clear business plan that you want to implement to get the company to profitability. So like I said, in my friend's case, he really wanted to get this visa because he didn't see any other path to temporary residency in Vietnam. He didn't want to get married. He didn't want to, invest a large amount of money. There may be certain other programs available, but he refused to park a lot of money in Vietnam. And with this company, he only had to park a few $1,000s, and all that money was consumed by expenses such as his lawyer, accounting, auditing fees. He had to pay for all of this, and now the money's gone. But he's okay with that because he knew that this is the money that's preserving my status in the country, my legal status, and I don't care what happens to this money. This money, I put it at risk to have and also maintain temporary residency in Vietnam. He got in with the right intentions, but little did he know the government could or would revoke his temporary residency in the country. For sure, he knew that he had no path to permanent residency, and now he's back at square one. He will likely not renew his temporary residence permit because it would likely be the same again, and he has no intentions of running a business in Vietnam. He doesn't want to do it. So my friend also secured residency in the Philippines. He obtained the SRRV program, the Philippines Special Resident Retirees Visa, and this visa is permanent. It is valid pretty much indefinitely. However, the Philippines SRRV program is one of the most successful retirement visa programs in the region for a number of reasons. Firstly, they never altered it. It is still the same today. You know that it was like 5 years ago, nothing changed. And secondly, it is really permanent. So it's a great program for a retiree, and actually you don't even have to be 65 years old. You can be younger to obtain this temporary resident permit for the Philippines. He got it in the Philippines, but he also got it in Vietnam. He simply loves both countries. However, now Vietnam is out of question. He doesn't want to repeat the whole process just to run into the same problem again 3 years later. He does not want to run into the same problem again. He told me, Gerald, if I want to visit Vietnam again, I will visit Vietnam as a tourist, not a resident. I don't want to put up with all this process to get the company incorporated. That was a lot of work. And secondly, I don't want to comply to all these annual requirements, including being audited, accounting, taxes, and many other fees. I'm not interested in these requirements. I don't want to do it. And then just to have the same problems again, I don't want to do it. And there's no path to permanent residency. I am out. That was his response. And who can blame him? In the Philippines, you give him 10 grand and you can stay there for as long as you want. You do have to pay the annual fees, but you don't have to apply again if the government decides that you're no longer qualified to maintain your residency in the Philippines. No, it's permanent. And for the Philippines knows that the SRRV program is a great revenue generator. That's why they keep it intact. They don't want to cancel this program because it's a great revenue stream for the country. They make good money from it. The people are happy, everyone's happy, so why not? Residency programs are changing worldwide. Just look at Malaysia. They had a massive fiasco during the past crisis where they announced current pass holders have to meet the new requirements, and they were completely out of reach for most people that were on the pass, and they reversed course and re-announced that the new requirements would not apply to current residents. With Malaysia's flip-flop policies, I think they have done a lot more harm than good, and people are a lot more suspicious now. They're skeptical about applying for the MM2H program, even though Malaysia is a really great country to live in. It gives phenomenal value. They really burned themselves during the past crisis with their flip-flop policies. Malaysia is a great value deal, it used to be, but the entry requirements for the Malaysia My Second Home program are so out of reach for most people, or people just don't want to invest that much just to get into Malaysia anymore. Before, the entry requirements, the residency requirements were just so much lower. Today, they're out of reach for most people, and even the people who can meet the requirements don't want to meet them because they have more reasonable options available elsewhere. So a lot of people do do go to the Philippines, and it's a country that I recommend for permanent residency, even though we don't sell it actively. If you want that kind of lifestyle and you want to be happy, go there, get in. Get the SRRV program, because in Southeast Asia there's really nothing like it. It's the best program. In Thailand too. In Thailand the visa changes every year. You know, we can really name several visas here. Everything is changing in Thailand so quickly that there's really no security, right? Even if you're married, and under certain circumstances, you know, some people may be able to apply for permanent residency like we're seeing in Malaysia, but in many Southeast Asian countries, including Vietnam and Indonesia, it's very hard to get permanent residency. I mean, these are wonderful countries, they're beautiful, but if you want certainty, if you want security, if you want permanent residency, then you may have to look elsewhere. Maybe the Philippines, Paraguay, you start with temporary residency, you convert to permanent residency. Or if you want to go into Argentina, I know it's not the same weather as in Southeast Asia, and Argentina applies worldwide taxation, right? So there's certain considerations you have to make. However, there are plenty of other options available. What is your take on the residency situation in Southeast Asia? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you're interested in obtaining a residence permit in Latin America, specifically in Paraguay, Uruguay, and Argentina, please contact us. We would love to work with you. Thank you for watching Nomad Elite, and we see you on the next video.